Pop out. Bam. That is going. And we'll put this like over here. Can I do this always on top? Nice, okay. Hey guys, so it is kick day because I'm sick, and sick day is kick day. That's how it works. So I've been making these kicks because I don't know, I've been dissatisfied with everything out there. I'm training with KJ Saka for a while, and he's an excellent drum programmer. This has caused me to rethink a lot of things. So my kind of philosophy is start heavy, and then you can kind of work your way back from there. All right, so these all peak at 0, right? These are Leviathan kicks from Black Octopus. They're not without their charm. They all peak at 0, same as mine do. I mean, I know mine look bigger, but that's partly because the window's bigger. Here we'll switch it up. You can hear the difference. I mean, any of these would work, really, but... And even if we just take the bottom, even just that, a lot of it has to do with the harmonics, right? You can see the difference in the rounding here, and I really carefully craft these so that it doesn't sound like a square wave or whatever, you know. And then also the mid-sideness of it all. See, this is the yellow is the side frequency, right? The side band, and you wouldn't always think about having a side band so much in the kick, maybe, but it makes a big difference when you do. This is just the side band, right? That's just on the bottom. The top layer has its whole own. Right, so this is just the side band. So I usually take care of all of that pretty much all along the way. I built this kick factory specifically to make sure that I make really good stuff and the quality control is in there, and that you get as much thump and knock out of your kicks as possible. Because, like, for me, if I can make my kick quieter and serve the same function, great. Like, if I have a really vicious transient, you can always chill out your transients. That's not a big deal. You just add some, attack, or you can filter stuff. You can add a auto filter that has an envelope follower if you want it to move some way and chill out your transient, but ultimately open up. I mean, there's a million ways to get to chill out your kicks, but to start with something that has as much transient response, as much knock and everything as you would need, and chill out from there, I think is kind of an easier way to go than trying to beef up kicks that might not have what you need in them in the first place, like the frequency content, the sideband information, etc. Yeah. So yeah, I just made this guy. I would probably shorten this considerably, right? And maybe retune it. I don't know. What I've been doing is I've been making sort of starting points, and then I'm going to deconstruct them all and give just the bottoms, and I'll have longer bottoms and shorter bottoms that you can mix and match together. I'm going to build racks for you guys to be able to combine these. So I'll have all these top ends and stuff, but the bottoms are all going to be perfectly crafted. The tops are all going to be perfectly crafted, right? You're going to be able to mix and match them to your heart's content, but you're also going to have the ones that are joined together and balanced by me and everything as well. So ultimately this should turn out to be a pretty good tool for you guys and have all the kicks you need. And then I'm probably gonna, in this rack, it's gonna be a 128 of tops and bottoms basically, but I'm gonna have some knobs to chill out the attack on the top and the bottom, and other ways to get these things to work in a broader variety of contexts than. Oh, hi, Gavin. Hi, how are you, dude? Hello. Presumably you can hear me. Yeah, that's kind of the plan for all this. Oh, damn, cool. Yeah, I think I let me know if the balance between the microphone and the kicks and everything isn't right. I put like minus 10 decibels on everything coming out the master relative to, yeah, but it's not like these kicks aren't like busting off your like ears, right? I mean, they are very loud. Don't get me wrong. Like they're all peaking at 0, but yeah, I pulled the levels on that down 10 decibels. So, but yeah, it's just kind of explaining my kick theory and making sure you have all the content that you need. I've got different. This is just one kick. I just have it set up this way so I can play different notes, and also actually, if you see these guys, I have it set up where these frequencies get followed. So these are like the first harmonics and second harmonics, right? So if I want to like have more of that, I can just add that in. So that's why I do it this way, because this is fundamentally like a sound design project. But I was about to save this guy. So I've been making all of these, and I think I did this one at F or F sharp or something like that. But because I'm probably going to start a new one now. This one was designed to be, I haven't even settled on the key of that one. It's not really like fully complete. So we'll say half done. It's really designed to be like kind of like a tighter knocky kick. Like a more chilled out beater. But yeah, so yeah, I really recommend. It takes a little bit to learn the programming. Send things to the master. What EH? What things to the master? Yeah, I don't know what you mean. EH. But and do you mean like in a track, or are you talking about for streaming? Like in a track, I'll often hit them. Ah, gotcha. Yeah, so that's a good question. So I used to, be like other people, and then I started training with Seth Drake, who's Bassnectar's mixing and mastering engineer, and his philosophy is start in the red, be in the red the whole time, like above 0, right? And then, so let's give an example really quick. But if we stick this up 6 decibels, it doesn't really sound bad. Like we're at +3. Okay. It doesn't really sound bad. And if it sounded bad, that would be an indication that it's probably not going to sound great in mastering, like once you add all the drive and everything in mastering. And so you can kind of use being in the red, even while you're writing and everything, as a quality control measure, and just be like around 5 decibels above 0. Right. And then that will help you like get sounds that don't distort nicely, like don't saturate nicely, right? That don't react nicely to limiters and all this stuff. It'll let you. Sometimes the only reason they're not doing that is because they're too driven earlier in the chain, or they're otherwise not like good sounds. There's like some frequencies that are like close to distorting or something like that, depending on what it is. So you might need to fix that stuff earlier before it ever gets to mastering. And so by working in the red, it will start highlighting and identifying those problems. And then you can fix them before you ever get to your master. So yeah, I usually hit my master around 5 decibels above 0. And then the first thing I do is I soft clip off gain stage before, after an unmixed arrangement. I mean, I'm always mixing. So that's the first thing, is I'm always mixing. From the first sound I pick, I'm thinking about the mix. I'm thinking about like, where do I want this in the frequency spectrum? Like how loud it is, where is it? Is it up front? Like I'm thinking about the stereo content right from the get-go. So as I'm composing, I'm mixing, and then I still do like mixing along the way. So yeah, and it takes more patience in some ways because it slows you down a little bit. Right? It takes more foresight for sure, which you can only really gain through experience. So that's the gist of it. Is like I'm always mixing, but these days I'm mixing louder. So I'll have my kicks hit around 0, and they're like usually like these like super vicious ones lately. Because by the time you get them in like a denser mix, and oftentimes like denser, thicker stuff, you want all the punch you can get out of your kick to make sure that maintains punch after all the limiting, after all the other sounds, right? I mean, you can do sidechain compression and stuff and definitely do that, but like, um, sometimes you don't want to, or sometimes you only want to do in certain frequencies, and even when you do, it's like, I don't know, like it's definitely a different sound if you're like, side chaining to 0 or whatever, like, like cutting out the full band and like really slicing it out so your kick gets all of its kickiness. Right? You kind of give up a lot of your other tracks by doing that. So having a really punchy kick lets you have all the punch while not pulling out too much from the other tracks. Right? And usually you don't need to like sidechain with like a negative infinity threshold or anything like that. You just need enough space. Especially like leads, stuff like that. Like sometimes you really don't want them to like disappear when the kick hits. Yeah. But yeah, I actually might do a bunch of mixing. Well, I'm definitely doing a bunch of mixing later today, but I might stream my mixing all day today. If you have mix questions, I kind of just like started doing this Kick Factory stuff to get me in the groove. I don't know. I don't feel great. I'm sick. My understanding is that I can't transmute sickness across the interwebs, so I think you're safe. But yeah, I figured I'd make at least like a couple of these presets. Try and push this project more towards completion. But it's been really fun. Let's get something that's like C sharp. C sharp. Okay, get back to middle signal. There we go. So brutal. All right, turn that down. But yeah, so 5.6, right? Way over 0. But it still sounds okay, and that's like a hard clipping. Right? And one of the things I like to do is, okay, so here's my kick, right? Looks like this. Fairly triangular, you'll notice. It actually, it's definitely clipped up here, but I can drive this clipper considerably more and it will still sound just fine. Right. So you can think about that as like a similar test. You're going above 0 or whatever. Like it's basically hard clipping all the true peaks and stuff to some. Well, true peaks are a little bit different. They don't actually hard clip. So they're less threatening. But they do have a kind of analog distortion as you approach like the analog headroom. Theoretically, but they're so short I don't think you really hear them. But yeah, you can see you can just freaking hard clip this. That's what this is. No, I'm serious. No, I am focused on my final mix. Even as I'm gathering ideas, like I'll gather parts and stuff, like I'll gather instruments and things like that, but I won't commit any MIDI down until I know it's tight. Like, and that includes the mix, the stereo imaging and everything like that. Like I will, like, yeah, I'm grabbing all these things and I'm writing a lot of stuff very quickly, but I'm making sure that I know where it's going to go in advance and that it fits there pretty good. Like I'll do EQing compression, I will do stereo imaging stuff right away. Like right away. I will do more EQing later to make sure that the color is more consistent together when I do a final mix down. But right away, I'm thinking about stereo imaging, general color, transient response, dynamic range, and what degree of focus do I want this element to have? And is this element part of the central focus, or is part of the frame that is trying to support what I'm drawing the listener's attention to? and see if your mixing does affect your arrangement. Yeah, I mean, I'll do a lot of the arrangement on this side before I ever get over to this side. Right. So I'll start by collecting parts and stuff, and then I will how do I say this? Like, start grouping them into scenes that I might use, and I'll put together all these different things. I'm like, oh, when I just have this part and just the drums, it's like this cool break section that feels like it wants to go somewhere. So then I might add in some buildy transitional stuff to have it go somewhere, and that will end up as a scene, right? So I'll start incorporating more transitional elements and other things after I've incorporated the main elements. But then I'll do all the automations right in the clips on the session side here. All right, so I'll do all my automations and everything right in here, and then ultimately I'll group those by scenes. So then I'll often have too many transitions, or I'll have too many things, like more than I need, and then I'll cut down into a reasonable length song from there. But a lot of the time, by the time I get to arrangement, I have so many scenes, I'll just record in and I'll just play the scenes, or I'll mix and match here. I'll play like 8 minutes in, and then I'll just delete a bunch of stuff. Depending. I mean, like, sometimes it's a little bit different. Like, that's what I find to be generate the best results for me, because it works with how my mind works in terms of like, oh, I need some leads. Like, I build around themes and motifs. So once I generate these themes and motifs, like, I can copy it over to other instruments, be like, okay, this is cool, but this needs like a little underlying counter melody just, in the MIDI here. So I'll add that, right? I'll build out this structure of, like I said, themes and motifs, but then I'll kind of arrange it, and usually, like I said, I'll do it in scenes kind of as I try these guys over here, right? And I will put it in all these different combinations that I intended to, didn't intend to, but it's just way easier to mix and match on this side. And so I'll mix and match all the different ways that I wouldn't even have thought, right? And as I'm like, oh, this would make like a really good like transitional break thing, and I add the transitional elements, I'll also audition those transitional elements back with everything else, right, to see if I can come up with other cool combinations. And so I kind of create a bunch of really cool stuff, like way more than I would need, right? Like 15 minutes at least of stuff. And then when I record it in, not only do I get the scenes in, sometimes I'll like stop and play stuff, or like otherwise experiment and like otherwise like put stuff together. But I try and get something that really flows from left to right, like flows and makes sense scene to scene. And then I'll have like 15 minutes of music, or 8 minutes of music, or 6, depending on how long I jammed for and how much I wrote. And I'll cut down, which is kind of how like Cohen Sound does it. They'll like write 60 minutes of music or something for a song and cut down to like 3.5. It's crazy. But like, yeah, so I try and get, and then I'll often get rid of the stuff that's only okay, or but at the same time, I'll also sometimes, like, once I have like 6 things, I'm like, this is all the song needs. And then I just arrange it from there, and I do very little of everything I just said, right? Like, if a song just like comes together, I'm like, oh man, it needs this sub, it's got these drums, it's got this vocal thing, and I'm just going to do some like little cymbal roll transitional things, and oh, let's do this harpsichord part. Like, that's basically this last song, and I got like the writing done for it in like 4 hours, and including the arrangement and everything. And then the mixing didn't even take that long, and it just sounds awesome. So sometimes stuff just comes together. And the other way I'll write, though, is I'll write on this back page. And then I'll do it in empty MIDI clips. I'll be like, okay, I'm going to have something here, right? I'll like have something. Oops, let me get rid of that. Yeah, so I'll like put something here and like all these different places, right? Like, and then I'll like write in what they are, but I won't even have picked instruments, and I'm just be like, okay, some tension builder here, right? Drop all these drums. So if I have like Yeah, definitely experiment with arrangement in the session mode. Yeah, mine start messy and then they get cleaner, more organized. But it definitely, you want to have a habit of keeping it as organized as you can, labeling what you can, and starting to group stuff in scenes that go together. And so it gets more and more organized, but you do the bits of organization all along the way, right? So, I mean, sometimes like if I really do a bad job of things for whatever reason, I'll like just sit and I'll clean stuff up for a while. But usually I try and at least try and keep the colors and the names pretty clean along the way. And then I'll start organizing them, like I said, into horizontal scenes, but not like moving them. I'm usually copying them, right? And so I have like often at the top, it's just like a hodgepodge of mostly everything. And then below that, I'll start putting them together into scenes, if that makes sense. I think I have to organize it in the arrangement. Yeah. Yeah, you don't have to organize in the arrangement, like I said. Like, it's good to keep it as organized as you can along the way. And like a lot of it is just like you get so habitual about it that you do it without thinking right away. And you can still think about the other stuff that's going on in your head. Like you're thinking about the next thing you might want to add, and you're not thinking about what are you naming this, because you just, or like what color do you have it. Like I keep my colors the same for my different parts all across my projects. I generally name stuff a pretty similar way. Expense to it at the bottom of the mess. Yeah. So I'll have like 3 or 4 lines of mess at the top usually. For sure. And then I'll do it. And then, yeah, you can label the scenes too. So then I'll like be like, oh, this is an intro. And then like, this is some kind of like build. I don't know. I mean, you get the point. So you kind of like group them. You can even like, if you really needed to, you can color them, which I sometimes do. Like I'll color them based off of energy level specifically. Like when I color them over there, I'll just be like, oh, this is red. This is like hot fire kind of stuff. Yeah, no, you're super welcome. It does help, like having a good. But here's the thing: when I say about the mixing in advance, like the reason that's so important is like it keeps you from having so much homework and losing perspective later, right? Like when you know what role every sound is serving because you incorporated that in the selection of that sound, then you're like, oh, this has no business in those frequency ranges. This has no business playing any time the same time as this sound because I you know the roles that those sounds are playing, and so you're like, oh, they're going to take up the same frequency ranges. Like maybe they're both like long and bled out, and like you'd have to do some work to make sure that they merged into one sound if you wanted to, but you'll never get them to be separated sounds, and it's probably going to be better just to use only one of them at a time. Right, so keeping all that in mind, the stereo imaging is really, really important to keep in mind. I usually think about the bass, like the core stereo imaging is that you want the sideband to sound mostly more or less like your midband. And then from there, you can start deviating from that structure. Like you can suck it inwards, or you can like make certain sounds like way narrower and certain sounds like way outwards. But until you've established that kind of more balanced structure, thank you.
You're welcome. I don't know. They didn't send us a lot of spicy stuff.
So. Oh, that's okay. But until you have like that kind of structure, like where your stereo, like the width, like your wideband. So I mean, so every project I have has this on it. I don't need this anymore. But every project I has this on it. So if I want to turn off the midband, I just do that. And what this is, I'll eventually give away this rack. I just haven't done a video on it, but this is a sideband, and this is not right. This is totally not right, because what you need to do, it helps, is to invert one of the sides after you solo the sideband, and then the other. Here, I'm just gonna switch this with the one that's already doing this how it's supposed to. Yeah, I reprogrammed this a second ago. Mid sideband. Yeah, this guy. So it inverts. So when I turn off the midband, it inverts the right side on the sideband, and the reason you want to do that is the sideband is polar opposites. Like this is L minus R and this is R minus L. But if I invert that, then it's L minus R and L minus R. And so when it's playing back, right, it's going to be all like phase cancel, either like polar inverted, playing in an equilateral triangle at my head. It's going to be all phased out and inverted. So although that's how it occurs in the stereo signal, when I'm listening to it and I'm trying to make mixing decisions based off of like how I want my sideband to sound, it helps to invert it so that you don't get the phase cancellation in the room. So you get a clear reference. Because you'll see if you like move your head around, it'll sound different at every point because different waves are canceling differently, and it's not worth it. But yeah, so like I have this on all my projects from the get-go, so I'm always listening to my midband, my sideband, how wide are things, like across the frequency spectrum too. But if you do that, then by the time you're done writing your song, you're also basically done mixing your song, and then it's all just like fine-tuning from there. It's not like, oh, I don't even know if this should be a wide or a narrow sound. It's like you already thought about all that and made sure that like you aren't having too many wide sounds and too many narrow sounds and too many this or that along the way, because you made those decisions. You weren't just like, oh, this sounds good, this sounds good, this sounds good. I'm like, yeah, it sounds good, but is it going to work as well, you know? Mm. Mm. Yeah, so people don't use these XY things, but they're so useful. Like even without going in here. That is not caps lock. Yeah, I can like here, it'll be easier if I solo this. And let's also Alright, so you can see, but it's controlling kind of the transient. You think about it, this is the pitch envelope. With mixing later. Yeah, exactly. Dylan, one of my gurus, Il Gates, he did this workshop called Composing the Mix. And it's, you know, he went really well into all of this stuff. So if he ever does one of those, definitely get on it. But, you know, he talks about exactly that. It's like you keep the mix in mind all along the way of composition, and then you make sure that like mixing's easy, right? When you have all this stuff that's just like not designed to go well together, and you're trying to get it to go well together, it's like, of course it's not going to be an easy task. Of course it's going to fucking suck when you're just like, man, none of these stuff, like it's all muddy, or when I make it not muddy, then it's thin, etc. Well, yeah, because you didn't plan on the right stuff, you know. There's a good example of like Johnny Cash, and it's just like a snare drum, a mandolin, and his voice, and he's got like, you know, this baritone voice, and like fills out the whole frequency spectrum, and it's perfect. All right, and it's just like 3 elements, you know, perfectly designed to go together, and that's all you need ultimately. You know, so just like kind of thinking about efficiency as well. That's like what I've gotten better about, because I like dense, complicated stuff, but it, you know, is it worth it? Why are you trying to make it complicated or dense? Like, and if it is, then how can you do it so it's easiest to work with in the future? Like, to have something that is quote unquote dense, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have it like all these sounds layered in different frequency spectrums, like overlapping, right? It might just be that you have like a couple sounds that cover the whole frequency spectrum really, really nice, and it's got this full, like, wide sound to it, but it really didn't take a lot of sounds or a lot of things, and it didn't take really any mixing because it was just really well designed from the get-go. You know? I am probably gonna end this stream soon so I can go get on this mixing thing, because I'm probably not getting any more kicks done, I'm realizing. Yeah, I might even try and give away this rack with this kick thing I'm doing, this kick pack. I don't know. I'm like pretty attached to this rack, and it requires a handful of plugins that people don't necessarily have. But it's so brutal. Oh man, I was like comparing it to all these like allegedly vicious, kicks from Black Octopus, and they're like nice and all, but like you can see the harmonic content of the tails is just not there, and like the sideband information is not like always very good, and like some of the shapes are just really weird, like this, and it got this woo, like this, like pew, like kind of. I mean, I guess if you like want that, but a lot of times that comes from you think about this, but like the compressor's biting down because you have this really high peak, right? And then the compressor's biting down too much compared to the body of it, and then it's releasing, but then it's releasing like faster than the body of this kick is decaying. And so it bit down too much because they weren't paying attention to the transients enough, and then the compressor is releasing, and then this is the real tail of the kick. And so, yeah, you'll see that shape with kicks all over the place, and they're fucked. And so, yeah, I've just, like I said, been really like this kind of thing is fine, but you can always make that kind of thing out of this kind of thing with a little bit of attack, right? You have like this little bit of attack, and you end up with a similar kind of thing, except for this will hit better just because of the harmonic content. But which you can also just high pass filter out. That's like the other part. You don't have to keep that if it's too intense, but you can always make this kind of stuff. But if you don't have that transient in the first place, how the fuck are you gonna add it into this? You can try and use a transient designer to grab this little bit and push it up, but it's not gonna work well. Separate the sounds for the arrangement. Well, I think what would help with that is you really want to. This is another thing that I kind of learned from this course, but when you're EQing stuff, you want to EQ your sounds. A lot of people are always thinking about, I need to cut away stuff so that it doesn't frequency mask. But there's actually another option, which is to EQ your sounds with nice chunky boosts such that they do frequency match better, right? That they're more cohesive across your whole mix. And then even if the sounds hit at the same time, the frequency levels are mixed together nicely. They're like matched nicely. Like say like around 300 hertz. It's like here's the lead around 300 hertz, and then you add in, like you might actually boost the like a pad sound or something in that region, and it's counterintuitive. But it might be that that pad is too wimpy in that region. It'll actually support the vocal better, and if you listen, there's this point where they merge and then they blend, and that the vocal seems like it's taking on the power of the pad underneath it or whatever. And this is true of all your sounds. So, and it'll provide a better mix. So if you listen carefully and you start blending like your snares color to your kicks color, and like your chord stab color to your kick, and like your subs harmonics have this, be like, oh man, the subs harmonics are really dull relative to like the warmth of this kick. You might need to saturate your subs, in order to add some of that color to it, and then that will give you a sense for like the color of the rest of your track. No, I'm not saying like cut out frequencies that don't sound good, but don't just cut out a frequency because they're sharing the same frequency space. Sometimes you actually want to boost frequencies, like of your non-lead sound. You might want to boost those frequencies, even if they're quote unquote masking, instead of trying to get them to be away so you can get a cleaner mix. What you might find is if you actually boost those frequencies sometimes so that they're cohesive to the level of the lead, then it will actually merge. Right? It's like if like this is the leads level at those frequencies and this is the level of the other sound, a lot of people are like, oh, you've got all this masking going on. Take those frequencies out. But if this is a pleasurable sound, you might want to boost those. And the reason you boost them is there's this sweet spot when this isn't, and maybe the level is here where it's not too loud and it's not that it's overtaking the vocal, it's not too quiet, that it just seems like this extraneous sound where it feels like it's right in balance and it's supporting the vocal and kind of causing it to be more cohesive and merging together. And that in general give you a more balanced mix across the frequency spectrum in the end. Like what I would recommend is I'm probably going to take like a half-hour break or something, and then I'm going to actually start mixing down some tracks because I need to get these tracks mixed for my show on New Year's. And all my new tracks don't sound like my old tracks because of this Seth Drake course. The other thing is that Seth Drake is opening this course to the public in a few months, and you might strongly consider getting in on it because it completely changed my like whole life, basically my whole relationship to sound. Like I don't know, like I don't stress about mixing anymore. I can do it in a fraction of the time, right? And when I do it, it doesn't ruin my song. It just makes the song more of what it's supposed to be. I don't make decisions that fundamentally change the song because I'm not doing stuff like cutting out valuable frequencies because some part of my brain said, oh, you're supposed to cut out competing frequencies because of frequency masking. Like, I don't do that shit anymore. Right? I'm just like, oh, this needs to support that, this needs to support that, and it's all cohesive and it's good. But that was yeah, well, give yourself, you don't need room, you need cohesion, right? And clarity. And yeah, clarity can come from cutting away frequencies, but usually you lose a lot of the body and worth of your track as a result. And I've definitely destroyed some tracks thinking that I was improving them. Just because I was like cutting away all the frequencies that were competing with my leads and stuff like that. And there was a cleanness to it, but it was dead. I've done that a bunch of times where like the color of my track coming out of it just makes no sense. And it's just like, yeah, I don't like, you should like, don't EQ your stuff soloed first off. Like don't EQ your tracks so like everything's relative to every other sound in your track. So yeah, that's why I'm here is to help people make better music. It's like literally why I do this channel is literally just to like make the music in the world better. Which I don't have to make all that music myself. Yeah, I'm really excited about these kicks. They're going to be so brutal, and by the time I get them stacked in this rack and other things, you're going to be able to then quickly change them into very different things, and all of it's going to be awesome all the time. I'm really, really excited. I've like been thinking about not just the samples, but also like the tools, like the racks and stuff to be able to use the samples, and it's going to be like the last set of kicks and kick that you would ever need, which a lot of people have said before. It's like, these are the last kicks you'll ever need, except for these are way better than all those kicks, and they're going to be more flexible. So that's going to be good. Yeah. For sure. Like, big chunky boosts here. I'm just going to actually, I don't even need to save. No, I am going to say this. I'm going to open up one of my tracks really quick. And I'll just show you some of the EQing. Yeah, because there's a couple things I wanted to do. Check, check. Yeah, check, check. Can you hear me now? Cool, yeah. Yeah, sorry, I had done all this processing in Ableton so that my vocals sounded better and side chaining and stuff so they didn't ruin the fidelity of those kicks. Oh, I was talking about chunky boosts and just, but you gotta like, when I'm EQing my bass sounds, like, hold on. Like when I'm EQing my bass sounds, for instance, I'll be listening to my kick. Right. So I'll be listening to the frequency response of my kick, like the high end of my kick, the middle of my kick, things like that, as a way to inform me of how I should color my bass sounds. Right. Um, and like when you do it that way, when you start EQing all your sounds in the context of other sounds, and you start from like the foundation of your song, which might be your kick, your sub and stuff, and you work outward from the foundation, then the whole song ends up being consistent because everything is designed to be consistent with the other sounds in it. So you're not just EQing a sound on solo or something and just like whatever sounds good to you at a time. You're always doing it relative to everything else. Otherwise, you know, you're liable to make a lot of mistakes. So this one I didn't even mix that hard because it sounded so good when I started, and it's also like frozen. Yeah. But at like the end of, oh no, not those. Those. Damn, what is going on with this track? I'm struggling just to click on stuff. I don't like any of those chunky boosts. I might have done them in Pro Q. But this one, like I said, this one sounded so good. From the get-go, I actually didn't do a lot of EQing. And the sub, I do all the sub harmonics these days with this wave shaper, like I do in this. So that's how that like came about. I think I did. Yeah. Okay. So I definitely did some EQing here. This I think was my old EQs though. But they sounded all right. I bet you there's like a Pro Q around here or something. But a lot of what this song needed was actually the stereo imaging, right? So I'll throw like an ozone imager on basically every single track. And you'd notice I actually have like weirdly wide subs on this track. Start with a center element, yeah. It is, but if you start with a shitty kick, then you're gonna end up with a shitty mix. Right? That's the problem. So you want to start with something that is objectively awesome, right? And that might come from reference tracks. So starting with references and like listening to what their drop sounds like, what do their kicks sound like during their drop, like all that stuff. So starting with something that is objectively awesome, like if your kick isn't slamming as hard as you need it to, or if your sub's not shaking the room like you need it to, then you don't use it. Like replace it, fix it. Right. So usually I've been going deep on stuff, but my subs are a good frame of reference. And you'll notice the frequency. Hold on, let me get better. Right. So when you have distortion, so just working with width when you're talking about stereo field, you're not going to add any new information to the side content. And so if there's not side content there already, like side information that you like that's there already, like these subs started out completely mono.
I believe, right? And so in order to get stereo content, I did it with Ozone, and Ozone, the way it works is with a delay system, like a Haas style thing. Now, what you'll find out is that different milliseconds of Haas like are associated with like kind of different frequencies if you think about that. But you can get your sub, right? Look, so this is cohesive, right? It's at +1. You can look at the path of signal coherence, right? Right, they stay solid and they're really wide. This is one of the wider subs I've ever done. I don't always recommend wide subs, but you can make wide subs that don't cancel out and they are mono compatible, but also don't screw up just the left signal or the right signal and that sound better. The short answer is for adding stereo content, you usually need delay. If you just do width, if there's no stereo information on the sides anyway, you can't just widen it and make it like, use like a width knob, like on utility or whatever. Like this will not add information, and the new one will once you get above 200, and I don't know how it does it. But it will. I think it will do something kind of like this. If you go above 200%, it'll start adding middle content to the sides. But it's tricky on how to do that because if you just do it directly, it cancels out, and it all ends up on like the right speaker or something like that. So panning you only want to do if you want it panned off center, right? There's plenty of reasons to do that, but in my mind, you need to sound good in mono, and you need to sound good just out of your left channel, and you need to sound good just out of your right channel. If someone's listening with just one earbud in, right, or if they're standing in front of the right speaker at one of your shows, they're only going to just get the right channel. And for instance, like Wider by Infected Mushroom, I stopped using because it fucks up your right and your left channel. Now, it will sum to mono, right? But what it's doing is it's doing a comb filter on your right side and a comb filter on your left side, but they're phase inverted. And so you're reinforcing and certain frequencies on your left side, and you're cutting certain frequencies on your left side, and your left side is not like there's no fidelity. And like if you do it on the vocal system, you just listen to the left side, and be like, holy shit, this sounds terrible. The mono signal is still fine. The right signal is going to be fucked. The left signal is going to be fucked. And it'll have a side signal. It'll be okay. But like if I had done it through Ozone, I could have controlled for the stereo content of the left channel and the right channel. Like will all be fine. So yeah, I stopped using Wider. Had stereo width because it fucks up the left channel and the right channel individually. Use Sidewinder for Joey. Yeah, I mean, theoretically, Wider preserves mono on basses, but again, you don't need to preserve your mono on basses. You need to preserve your phase coherence on basses, on your subs. So these subs are not mono. There's nothing mono about these subs, and you can see it. But if you noticed, the left channel and the right channel are in balance, and we're not out of phase. Out of phase means more than 45 degrees here, right? It means you're outside of that. That's when your waves start canceling. So if that's not happening, your waves aren't canceling. Yeah, there's some samples here where the waves are canceling, but the volume's really low here, right? It's not even close to the outside. It's just only these little tiny bits, and then all the high volume waves are hitting. And when you listen to it on headphones, it sounds awesomer than it does when you have a mono bass. And when you listen to the mono bass is the same fucking bass, right? This is a mono compatible plugin. This delayed signal, they phase invert it so that it cancels completely. This is mono compatible. You'd have to worry about the left or the right channel messing up. The left and the right channel not messing up because of the way I have this timed. Right. Now, if I change this to something else, you'll notice it changes. It's like, look at that. That's going to sound really weird in headphones, or if you have like just like tower speakers that are producing subs on both sides or whatever. Anything that the subs are being produced on both sides, headphones, anything where the subs haven't been summed to mono, it's going to sound really weird because the subs are kind of coming from one side. And a lot of times that won't matter in a room if it's coming out of speakers, but in headphones it definitely will. But like I said, depending on the frequencies that you're working with in the key of your song, there are milliseconds that will keep your signal centered. And so you can have stereo subs, and they sound awesome. I did not ever think I was going to have stereo subs, but yeah, Seth Drake, that's another thing. He's like, oh yeah, no, I've totally done that. You know, he even made this bet with his friends that they wouldn't be able to tell him which song was. It was a Bassnectar track too, so it's like, you know, been played to tens of thousands of people at once, and slams there. But you can see very clearly it does not go out of phase. I mean, just these little bits here, but the vast majority of the waves. And if you look at the like the mid-sideness of it all, this is what I really like is Signalizer. Let me change the color blend. Cool. So that's the mid and the side signal, right? So this is the mid and the side. The white is the side. Okay, look, the mid and the side waves are completely in phase, right? When we look at it as left and right, look at this left and right. The left and the right waves are in phase, right? They're not out of phase. They're not perfectly in phase, but they are up when they are up together. They're about 45 degrees out of phase. Yeah, check it with headphones for sure. Like listen in headphones. You should do that anyway. Because like, you know, your speakers cross, right? So your right speaker reaches your left ear and your left speaker reaches your right ear. That's not going to happen in headphones. So you definitely need to always check in headphones for all sorts of things similar to this. I have this rack, which I told you about before, but there's also, all right, so for, this is, so this rack, pretty important, but if I just want to listen to the lows, I turn the lows on. This is just the highs. Right, but this would just be the right channel. And then I hit this, and this would just be the left channel. Right, and so the left and right channels sound effectively the same. And like I said, when you look at the left and right channels in here, that's the other thing I'd recommend is if you don't use Signalizer yet, like this one I actually might worry about a little bit because you can see in this case the right channel on some notes, not all the notes, but these notes, when you actually it's not too bad. So it's kind of okay to fold a little bit on this. Let me just show just the right channel. But it's kind of okay to fold a little bit, but you can think about if the speaker's trying to push air, it's like going inward. Hey, Ryan, how are you? It's good to see you. But it's like about to slam the air at you, and then it doubles back for a second. It's like, wait, maybe I'm not going to push the air at you. It doubles back for a second, and then it whips around again to push the air at you. But it does have this unbroken period from right up here all the way. Oh no, see this too. This right here will fuck up its ability to push waves or air as well. Right, so that's one thing that you want to worry about a little bit. But when this actually sums back into mono, the left and the right channel, the mono compatibility is totally there, right? Right, and then like I said, I do mid side, so but what we're listening to right now is again just the left channel. Yeah, and if you listen in headphones, it sounds actually good. Okay, so phase is when you shift the wave left and right. Right. It's like literally just like Okay, so you can imagine like if we have the top of one wave is like this, like the crest of the wave is this, and the other crest of the wave is like right on top of it. They're perfectly in phase. But if I move one to the right, I'm phasing this wave, right? And if I get completely out of phase, right, this one's going to be down, and it's going to be here, and they're going to like cancel out, right? Um, where did you get your information? I've gotten a lot of my information from all over, like different places, but for wave physics, probably I read a lot of articles for those things. I don't know. I've been like the biggest source of information I've had is since joining the producer dojo, and Dylan's pointed me in a lot of directions. But I've done a lot of research on my own, and like then once you know enough, you can go in and test stuff yourself, right? So, um, like I was saying, like how Seth Drake was talking about these stereo subs. I'm like, okay, stereo subs, they're okay. You could be in this mindset of, oh, stereo subs are always a bad thing. And I'm like, oh, wait, no. Let's think about what I know about phase cancellation. Let's think about what I know about waves and like how all that stuff actually works and be like, okay, when are stereo subs good? When are they bad? And how can I make them reliably good? And so a lot of this stuff I did through trial and error, through exactly what I'm doing with you, is showing you all the different breakdowns of the waves, like looking at the actual phase, like zooming in. And what you'll find is if you're what's called like 180 degrees out of phase would be like this is up while that one's down, and that means you're going to cancel out. If you're 45 degrees out of phase, you're just a little bit out of phase, just kind of like this. And then what you'll find is when you're at the top here, you're like halfway, you're crossing zero on the other wave, and then that one gets to the top, and then the other one crosses zero, and then you're going down together. So you're actually not out of phase, right, per se. You're not perfectly in phase, but you're still within the realm where you're actually adding together as opposed to subtracting. And yeah, so like the other thing worth noting about phase is that your side signal is literally out of phase information. Like it's the difference, well, sort of. It's the difference between your left signal and your right signal. So if like your right signal is all the way up here and your left signal's here, this difference here is your side signal. Right, so you can have a side signal and have stuff still both be positive and both be negative, and they're always on the same side of negative infinity, right? They're always moving up together or down together, basically, but they're different. And so that you would still have a side signal. Solo dolo, bro. Yeah, so that's yeah, so you can see how the white ones are spiking. This is the mid and side information, but again, when you look at the left and the right information, it's not like the white one. Here, let me even. Then we'll zoom in. Right, you can see they're going up together. Right, and then they're going, I don't know if that thickening actually helped. They're basically going down together. They're not perfectly in phase, but they're like 45 degrees out of phase. They're just like a little, like 360 would be you've gone a whole loop around the wave. Like you've gone up and down and you're back to zero or whatever. That's 100, or that's 360 degrees. 80, if you're 180 degrees out of phase, this one's going up, that one's going down. When you add them together, the left and the right channel to get the mono, they're going to fucking cancel out. Right here, on the other hand, because the left and the right channel are overwhelmingly in phase, let's send that up. You can see the left and the right channel, they're moving up together. Now the right channel is going down, and then the left channel is going down, but they're, it's like a whoo-choo, choo-choo, choo-choo, choo-choo kind of thing, right? It's not like this. And yeah, it's not like this, but it's close to that. And so there are two waves, white and pink. Yeah, there's totally two waves. And that changes depending on what, like right now, separate means it's the left and the right channel. This is the mid and the side signal. So the mid signal, the mono signal, is the left channel plus the right channel. So it's literally the height of the left wave plus the height of the right wave. The side signal is the left channel minus the right channel. So it's the difference between those, right? So that's what the side signal is. And so the pink one here now is the mid signal, right? So let's do this again. So this was left and right. And if you added these two waves together, you would get this, the mid signal, which looks basically the same, right? And that's part of the design, the brilliance of this system is there's 45-ish degrees off phase. That's why not only did the left and the right channel sound the same, you can see these subs, they're centered. They're not mono subs. They are not mono subs, right? A mono sub, if I brought this down here, like let's solo this, right? Mono sub, no longer mono sub. Yeah, so, but they are symmetrical. And they are in phase, right? So you can see the phase, the in phase. This is basically how much cancellation or non-cancellation are you having on the middle signal. The middle signal is basically fully in phase all the time, even though it's stereo. That's what I'm saying. Out of phase means one side is positive, one side is negative. Like if you're like really like out of phase, by which I mean you're canceling, right? But if you're both on the same side, like if you're both positive, the left channel plus the right channel is going to add up to more than just the left channel by itself, right? So this shape produces content equally in the left channel and the right channel and the mid signal and the side signal, which seems like a balancing act you wouldn't be able to manage. But if you tune this just right, then you can get these very elegant shapes that are symmetrical but also in phase and wide all at the same time. So they're wide, they're in phase, and symmetrical, which is really cool because I did not think that that was possible up until like a month ago. Yeah. All right, but for reals, I'm gonna take about a half-hour break, and I'm gonna get on because I gotta mix these tracks down. And so, if you want more questions, like literally, I can show you on a better hands-on kind of way to do this stuff. But I need to mix these tracks down. So I'm gonna roll bounce for now. And I love you, and thank you for being on. The moment moves from a single line. Yeah. Right. If you look closely in this thing, it's a bunch of little dots. Yeah. Those dots are individual samples, right? Like, the 44 point. I'll be here streaming on my YouTube channel again pretty soon, like later today. Yeah, so I'll should just be broadcasting if you're subscribed to my channel or whatever. But yeah, like I said, these are individual samples, and yeah, left means it's left panned, right means it's right panned, that sample, right? And if you are anything but specifically right in the middle, then yeah, you are not mono. This is mono, and it's exactly in the middle. If you're anything but that, you're not mono. Right, and if we don't have this on, this whole sub is mono. Right. It needs this Haas delay in order to make it stereo. Right. But I promise you, most people will tell you your subs have to be mono, and they don't know why. Let me get back on. I have some more questions for you pertaining to mixing stereo side information. Yeah, dude, for sure. Like I said, I'm gonna take like a half-hour break, but I gotta be mixing down these tracks for my New Year's show anyway. Yeah, so Ryan, if you wanna hop back on, I can, because I'm gonna be doing a lot of mid-side mixing, like that's half. I go every single track. I do like one of these ozone imagers and get the stereo balance to where I want. So, but well, that's partly what this meter shows you is the phase, right? There's like two uses of the word that we're using. One is the shifting left and right of a wave, but it's also when you're not in phase, you're canceling, and so that's what anything below 0 is. And you can see we're basically at +1, perfectly in phase. Yeah, I would not make subs where this just basically didn't stay straight at 1. Like if this ever dipped down this far, I would not use it. Right, if I drop this down, right, so yeah, so 0 mean, yeah, like you start getting cancellation, like proper mid signal cancellation when you go below 0. So there is a little bit of mid signal cancellation, but it's like you're not even gonna see it. And I showed you the middle wave, but like you're not even gonna see it because it's just like I said, they're not on other sides of the or if they are, it's like you can see the way, like it's just these little samples here when it's basically silent anyway. Right. Like those are the ones that are actually canceling out, and that's what's keeping it from being. If it was all within here, like within this 45-degree line, then it would be +1. At 45 degrees is when you get to 0, and then outside of 45 is when you get -1. But this is kind of adding it all up together on average. So we got these little tiny bits, but basically we're all right in phase. Yeah. Yeah, it's just you don't want your subs to, like the left channel and the right channel, to cancel out when they get added to mono, and then your subs stop pushing. But if this is all the way at +1, then that's literally telling you definitively that that's not happening. Yeah, it's canceling because they're out of phase, because one's up while one is down. When you add positive to negative, you get like 0. You cancel out to like silence. Cool. Yay, I'm glad you got it. All right, like I said, I'm gonna roll bounce for a minute and then I'll be back. All right. Thanks for stopping by and asking questions. I think it's always better when people stop by and ask questions. Bye.